Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking you through my most read authors. And surprisingly, these aren't my favourite authors, these are just the authors that I have read the most books from. It's a bit of a weird, interesting list and not what I expected. So there's a few like completely random ones in there. The way I got this data was that you can pull a file from your Goodreads. So this is based on what is on my Goodreads list. And I've been curating my Goodreads list since 2014, so there may be a few things. I think like when I first made my Goodreads account, I did go through and like put on some of the books that I read when I was a teenager and a child, so they should all be on there, but like there might be a few that are missing. But I did try and make it like a comprehensive list of things that I've read, and I've definitely kept it up to date since 2014. You can pull this file from there, and then there's this website where you can put it into, and it gives you loads of stats. It's so interesting, like so interesting. So I will link it down below if you are interested at all in your reading stats, because it's got loads of things on there which I really like. And what I found, like aside from the most read authors bit, what I found really interesting is that it tells you like what day of the week that you finish the most books on. And supposedly I'm more likely to finish books on Mondays than any other day of the week. It was saying like of the 736 books that I have on my Goodreads account, 125 of them I finished on a Monday, and like all the rest of the days of the week are roughly around 60. I'm like, why do I finish books on Mondays? Like, I didn't realise that was a thing. Maybe I do like a solid amount of reading over the weekend and then I just can't quite finish the book, so I finish it on a Monday. I want to start the week strong. I don't know, I just found that really interesting. I was like, why do I finish books on Mondays? Anyway, away from that tangent, onto my most read authors. So supposedly my most read author is Cassandra Clare, and it says that I've read 25 of her books, and I will put a caveat on that I've read some of the short story collections, and I think when I read the Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, it wasn't published in its bind up yet, so I marked each individual novella as a book on Goodreads. That instead of counting that as one book, it counted as 10, so I'd say that the number's probably closer to like 15, 16 as opposed to 25, but she's coming up as my most read author. I have read a lot of her books. I read obviously because she's my most read author, the Mortal Instruments, the Infernal Devices, the Dark Artifices. I have started The Last Hours and just read Chain of Gold. I haven't read Chain of Iron yet. I've read Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy and Ghosts of the Shadow Market. So a few of the novellas. I haven't read all of her published books. Like she's got loads more. She's got like the Magisterium series, not read that. She's got the Magnus Bane books, not read any of them. So she's still got loads of books, but she's currently my most read author. My second most read author, which I was really surprised about, was Jennifer L. Armentrout. And I mean, yes, I do go on about the From Blood and Ash series, and I really, really like this. Apart from the third book was a bit of a miss, but I didn't realise that I'd read so many of her other books until I saw her at the top of the list. I was like, 16 books? 16 JLA books? Really? Really? And then that got me to thinking that quite a few years ago I read her Lux series. So that was 5 books. I read her Covenant series, and that was like another 5 books. I've read these books. I think there's a couple of novellas in there. I read Wicked, the first book in that series. So I've read quite a few of her books, and I was like, how did that happen? How did that happen? So yeah, JLA, read quite a few of her books, and she has so many more. She has so many more books. So definitely a long way to go until I complete her catalogue of books. And then this one is not a surprise at all. Wasn't a surprise to me to see her on the list. Don't think it was a surprise to anyone else. But Sarah J. Maas. I've read 15 of her books. I think I've read every published book by Sarah J. Maas. There's nothing that I haven't read. So I have read the Throne of Glass series, all of it. I have read all of the published A Court of Thorns and Roses books. Love that. I have read her Catwoman standalone story thing. I have read Crescent City. So I have read everything she has published and will continue to do so. So that's coming in at 15 books currently. A surprise entry, and I don't think I've ever talked about this author on my channel, is Anthony Horowitz at 13 books. If you don't know, when I was growing up, I loved the Alex Rider series. I don't know if it's big in the US. It was really big here in the UK. And they did a TV show, which I watched last year on Amazon Prime, which I really enjoyed. And it had a film, like, it came out years ago. So the first one being Stormbreaker. And this, you're following like this it starts off with a young boy in the first one, and at the beginning of the book, his uncle dies in a mysterious car accident, and Alex finds out that his uncle was a spy. He was raised by his uncle, as this 11-year-old boy gets enlisted into the government, and he got enlisted to be a child spy and go off and do spying for the government and cases. I loved them. I remember I think I struggled to get into the first one as a child, like when I was like 10, and then we started reading them in school. Like, I remember the teacher reading Stormbreaker, the first book, in class, and she was reading like the first paragraph, like she was reading the first few chapters, and I was like, oh, I've read this, I wasn't too much of a fan. And then she must have got to this point and I was like, I have to know what's going to happen next. I can't wait until the next time she reads this. I can't wait. And the like independent bookshop was on the way home, and my mum worked there, and I remember leaving school, walking to the bookshop and being like, Mum, I have to have the book. I have to have it now. Like, I need to read the book. And like getting the book from the bookshop, going home and reading like the whole thing because I couldn't wait for us to get to it in class. And so yeah, and then I just continued reading all of them as they came out. There might be a couple that I haven't read, like the latest ones. Yeah, so potentially I haven't read like the whole series. It did go on and on and on, but I loved them. They were so fun. And then another one, a childhood one that I haven't really talked about, is Lemony Snicket, again with 13 books. And I guess you can, judging by me saying I read 13 Lemony Snicket books, I read the whole of the series of Unfortunate Events. So there we go. I read all of that series. He's a most read author, I guess, just because I read that one whole series all the way through. Again, this one is not so much a surprise. I read how many books? Supposedly I have read 10 Brandon Sanderson books. I've read like Elantris, I've read Warbreaker, I've read Mistborn, I've read some of Mistborn Era 2, I've read The Way of Kings, I've read Skyward, I've read The Arithmetist. Like, I've read quite a few of his, but again, still I have a lot more that I can read. Like, I have the rest of the Stormlight archive to read, so that number is definitely going to increase. So there's definitely room for that one to grow and for him to work his way up the list as time goes by. And the thing is, like, that's what the number is saying. It's saying 10, but I've reread the whole of Mistborn, so I feel like he's higher in a way because I've done this rereading of his books, and I'm definitely keen to reread Elantris and Warbreaker soon, hopefully in this year, maybe. Brandon Sanderson, not a surprise. Love his books. Pretty much loved everything I've read apart from my like little hurdle with Era 2 of Mistborn, which I will reread and try and fix, but I've stumbled a bit there. But the rest of them I have loved. Another author that I haven't really talked about very much is Marissa Meyer. So I have supposedly read 10 of her books as well. So I've read the whole of the Cinder. Yeah, so I read the 4 main books in that series. I read the like novella with the villain. I read the like bind up of novellas that came up afterwards. I've read the Renegades trilogy. I've read Heartless. So coming in, I read quite a lot of Marissa Meyer's books, and I find them all really fun. Like, these are really, really fun books. So I'm happy to have read all 10 of her books, and I will continue reading her books. I haven't been too interested. She had a release last year, which was contemporary. Wasn't interested in that. But if she comes out with more like fantasy YA books, then I'll definitely read that. I find her writing style so compelling. So compelling. I raced through the Cinder books. It was a few years ago. It was like 2016, I think, and I just could not stop reading them. They were so compulsively readable. And I definitely remember, like, I had quite a long commute when I was reading them. I actually enjoyed the commute because I could read so much of those books. Another surprise entry is Charlaine Harris, because it says I've read 10 of the Sookie Stackhouse books. I don't know if I made it to the 10th one. I don't know how far I got. Like, I definitely read them whilst I was ill, and I remember just binging, but I don't know how far I binged to, because I read these before I started my Goodreads, so I think I just put them all on. But I may not have actually binged them all, because I don't think I finished the series. I can't remember finishing it because I think I got bored, or like just got fed up with the antics. But I found them fun. I think I enjoyed the TV show more than the books, but they were definitely a fun time. So supposedly I've read a lot of Charlaine Harris either way. The author who must not be named, but she's on the list and it would feel remiss not to mention it. I have read supposedly 9 J.K. Rowling books. I don't think I've read 9. I think I've read the 7 books in the Harry Potter series, and then I have read them in French as well. So I think the number is inflated by having some of the French books pull through as different books. So I think that's why it's come up that high. And I guess I have reread these, I don't know how many times, because I had the tapes, and the thing is, I wouldn't even reread the whole book, because the beginnings were always weaker for me. Like, I just loved the middle bit when they were in Hogwarts, and I never really liked the ending. So like, I'd literally just re-listen to the middle of the book, and I had them on tape cassettes. So I'd like re-listen from like tape 2, skipping the first tape, and I'd always like skip the last tape because I never wanted to end. I'd just keep going back over the middle section. And the thing is, like, because the tapes would be all over the house, I'd just like keep going on the same one as well. Sometimes I'll just be like, oh, I just feel like some of that. And so I don't even know how many times I've read these books. I mean, sometimes obviously I did read them all the way through, and I did read them in French as well. And I have got these illustrated ones. I mean, I know it's really hard to talk about these books because they meant so much to me as a child, and I thoroughly enjoyed them and reread them, and the story has had such an impact on me. But we don't support J.K. Rowling. So I'm very sorry if it offends you that I've showed this book in the video. That's not my intent at all. It's just a large part of my childhood. I have read a lot of her books and need to be honest about that. Also coming in with 9 books is Leigh Bardugo. So I've read all of the Grishaverse, and I have read Ninth House, and I guess that comes to 9. So I've read Shadow and Bone, I've read the Six of Crows duology, I have read the King of Scars duology, I've read Language of Thorns. I haven't read the Guide to Saints, that one, and I've read Ninth House, and I want more Ninth House books. I really want more of these. I feel like I'm done with the Grishaverse now. I feel like it's had its time. I mean, I really, really like the TV show, but I just want more Ninth House. I want more of this, and I want to reread this, but I don't want to reread it until we get more books in the series. So this and her. So those are my 10 most read authors. I thought I'd just keep going and talk about the authors where I have read 8 books as well, just as like honorary mentions onto this list, because they're some of my favourite authors and I want to talk about them. So we'll go till 14. 14 of my most read authors and not 10. Coming in with 8 books. John Gwynne. One of my favourite authors, and one that I discovered only in 2020, so a recent favourite author that I have made my way through all of his books, and I just love them so much. So I read all of the Faithful and the Fallen, all of the Of Blood and Bone trilogy, and Shadow of the Gods, which has just come out, and I can't wait for more. I want more. And I have a guide to John Gwynne, which I will link, because I love them so much, and I want everyone to read them, and I want everyone to go in and enjoy all his books. So John Gwynne, yes, I've read 8 of his books, and I can't wait to read more. Another author where I have read 8 books is Renée Ahdieh. So of her books, I have read The Beautiful and the Damned in this series. I have read The Wrath and the Dawn, that duology. I have read, how have I got to 8? I have read The Flame in the Mist. That's not 8. Oh, okay. Supposedly I've got to 8 because there were some novellas in the Wrath and the Dawn duology. So that's how I've got to 8. I was like, how have I got there? How have I read 8? But novellas, apparently. I haven't finished the Flame in the Mist duology, and I don't think I will. I think it's just been too long between those books. But I definitely want to, when she puts out the next one in this series, I will read it. I really do like her writing style. Another author where I have read 8 books is Amy Kaufman. Again, a bit of a surprise. I didn't realise I'd read that many books by her. And I've never read a book that she has written by herself. I've only read books where she has co-authored them with other authors. So I read the These Broken Stars trilogy, which she wrote with Megan Spooner. Read all 3 of them, and I think there's a few novellas in that series as well, which I've also read. And I have read the Illuminae Files trilogy, which she wrote with Jay Kristoff. So I've read all of them. I have also read Aurora Rising, which again was with Jay Kristoff, and I'm not going to continue that trilogy. It wasn't for me. So turns out I've read quite a few of her books as well. And then the final author where I have read 8 books is Susan Dennard, and I really like Susan Dennard's books, so I'm happy she's here as well. So I have read all of the Truth Witch books that are out. She has the next one coming out in June, but it's not out quite yet, and I think I will need to reread before I get to that one, but all of the Truth Witch books, which I've loved, and I loved them so much that I went back and I read her debut series, I think it was, which was Something Strange and Deadly, and I really enjoyed that. I didn't like it quite as much as Truth Witch and this series, but I enjoyed it. So I really do like this series. I love the friendships in it and everything in it. Those are 14 of my most read authors. So a slightly different list than I would have thought, because there's like some authors that I don't really talk about. Some of my favourite authors aren't on here because they don't have that many books out yet. So like, I'd say that S.A. Chakraborty is one of my favourite authors, but she only has 3 books, so she can't make the list, and that's so unfortunate. I was also curious what the list would look like if I, instead of looking at the number of books, if I looked at the number of pages. So I'll put a screenshot of the whole list up, which goes a bit further down. It goes for like 25 authors, and I'll show you both the ones by book and then by pages to see how it differs. And a lot of the authors are the same. If I've read the most books by them, then generally it equates to the most pages, but there are some authors that rise up and down the list depending on that. So like George R.R. Martin comes into the list. I've read 5 of his books, but because they're all very, very chunky, there's a lot of pages in there. So I thought that was interesting, like seeing how that changes the list a little bit. So like Brandon Sanderson goes a bit higher up the list. Stephanie Meyer creeps onto the list with the Twilight series. So yeah, it's definitely interesting to see how like the page count's slightly different. I mean, generally it's the same people, but there's like a few slight differences, which is interesting. And like some of the authors go completely down the list, like Lemony Snicket, because all of the series of Unfortunate Events is they're all really short. But yes, I find it very interesting. I will link the website below if you're interested in finding out your own stats. I mean, I find stats interesting, so it's just really excites me. So let me know what your most read author is if you know it. You might have some surprises like I did. So thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!